Hello, my name is Catherine Farden, a student at Miami-Dade College North Campus. I had the pleasure of speaking to students and faculty members who attended a faculty-led co-curricular service immersion initiative in Managua, Nicaragua.
Hello, my name is Jaime Salota, and I am a professor of social work and student life skills here at Miami-Dade College North Campus. We went to Nicaragua to do a co-curricular intentional learning program that included 8 students and 2 faculty members.
My name is Leslie Gonzalez. I'm a student at Miami-Dade College North Campus, and I'm pursuing a pathway to a major in education.
My name is Hayden Sid. I'm a major in psychology.
My name is Mario Ricketts. I'm an optician major at Miami-Dade.
My name is Cubano Jean. My major is psychology, pursuing at Miami-Dade College.
My name is Henry Duvet. My major is social work.
My name is Lynn Gonzalez, and I am a student at Miami-Dade North Campus, and my major is criminal justice.
My colleague, Dr. Arlene Garcia, she's a psychology professor here at the North Campus.
I'm Dr. Arlene Garcia. I'm a faculty for psychology and student life skills in the Department of Social Sciences here at Miami-Dade College North Campus.
Feelings are universal. Call it God, call it karma, call it connection, but it's as if certain students were just brought into each other like magnets.
I saw him as a younger brother, and I really wanted the best for him.
Education should not be confined to a chapter. Education is lifelong. All it takes is one person to say, I want to make a difference.
That's really what we call transformative learning.
Time to learn some Spanish.
I saw a lot of me in her, and I got to see the good in her, which also exposed me more to the good of me. Every child left a fingerprint in our hearts.
The history of where we went was very important and tied in to what we wanted the students to see, and again, that field experience. The kids that are orphaned are coming from histories where parents are drug addicts or with prostitution as well and have been abandoned. Many of them have been there all of their lives. So we're talking about 12, 15 years in this orphanage. Since I've been here only about 5 years, I didn't know the process of how all of this could happen, and Professor Ansalota was key. You know, he really made the trip and all of the logistics, and with the students as well, from his club, mine, from his classes, from my classes, for this to really come together and to actually make it happen. So since last summer we started, then in August when the academic year began, we met, and like he said, we had to sort of work out how this was going to go about, and we started to recruit the students. Hayden, Cubano, and Lillian actually are part of the psychology club, and that's how they sort of came on board, and they'll share how that was for them. But it was something really, the intention behind it is to tie in the co-curricular and to go beyond the competencies that the students learn in the classroom and actually see it in the real world scenario.
What were the expectations that you had for the trip and also for the country? Because 1 month, that's a long time to Google and think about what was going to happen and plan. And so what were you thinking? What were your expectations?
Well, I had Professor Anzalotto for class, and he came up to me, and Cubano, he was like, I have this great service learning experience where we're going to go to Nicaragua. And I looked at Cubano, I looked at him like, seriously, really? We're going to Nicaragua? Like, I've never been outside Miami. Like, so that experience, the thought of going to Nicaragua, it was like, I didn't know what to say. And then he's like, but don't tell anybody. I'm like, I can't tell my mom? I need to tell my mom. I need to tell someone. So it was like shaking. Like I didn't know how to explain it. It was great. Yeah, and Cubano, I don't even know how he responded.
Going for a whole month not telling anybody that you're going to do this service kills, like the barrier kills us. Like I want to, tell the whole world like what I'm about to do, but at the same time I had to close minded. Like
after we got past the fact like, okay, we've been asked to go, then we were like, okay, now it's time to do some research, because I know a lot of us were like, well, is it going to be safe?
I think that I was so excited. I made a countdown, every other week. It was this and much days, and I was just really excited. And from the beginning, I knew that this was a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Countdown. Every Monday, I get a text from Leslie. Saying, we have a week left. We got 2 months left. Like, I'm so excited. We can't wait. So it was amazing.
I noticed that a lot of the people I know are from Nicaragua, like my boss is from Nicaragua, my assistant manager, when I had a job, was from Nicaragua. My ex-girlfriend's best friend was from Nicaragua, so I would like interview them a little bit. It's like, oh, how's Nicaragua? One person said, oh, it's lovely, it's beautiful, like, like you're gonna have an awesome time, you're gonna eat a lot of fruit and all this. And then another person said, I hated it, I wanted to get out. And then another person say, it's life-changing. Okay, and then my grandfather's wife is from Nicaragua, and when I told him that I was going to Nicaragua, he's like, I will help you fundraise. I will put some money down so you can go. So it was that was my form of research, because I am bad with Google. I'm really bad with Google.
And besides Google, it was all of us were getting sources from different people. So I would say, no, I heard it's cool in that area. And then someone else would be like, no, I heard it's really hot. So it was just, we were going with everything that everyone told us, and all of us had different sources. And I think that was the good part about it. Just everyone had a different expectation, but once we got there, we all got the same reality.
Even for me as a professor, we planned the event, we wanted to make it happen, but those countdowns made it more real, and when we thought we had information, and then I would see her text message, 5 days, 4 days, I would literally see myself on the computer more and more as the numbers became less and less. So it was, thank you for the anxiety, that's the other thing that I formerly told you, but it just made it a lot more real.
I think to add to that as well, we brought in Dr. Sider, who's our history professor, to understand where they were going, the population, the history of Nicaragua. This is the context, these are the people, and where the children would be coming from. So we did have some speakers come in to prepare for that beginning.
It also went beyond the speakers. I think that's something that touched us all a lot, was listening to one another in the pre-meetings. I think that once as a group, as a unit, we came together and we met and we shared and we discussed expectations, that's when I would say that we bonded the most. That's when we really got an opportunity to see, okay, Lillian, so then what are your expectations? Henry, what do you envision? And then based on those statements, Arlene and I were able to come back and sort of make any changes if necessary so that it can meet all of our expectations, while keeping in mind what we did which was to embed the competencies of the class and the mission and vision of the organizations to the field immersion experience as well.
And I think to add to that, to set up the expectations, once we figure out what the population we were going to work with, which was orphan children, then that led to, I remember Leslie and Lillian, everybody putting their heads together and do fundraising specifically for like school supplies, because now we knew exactly who we're going to be dealing with, where we were going, and through those presentations, we also got to see the facilities, and that also sparked what else we can do. So you saw within the group, everybody put in their own idea to what they wanted to contribute when they got there.
Fundraising, how did you guys fundraise? What were your methods for fundraising?
Every Wednesday, we had a table set up in the bottom floor of Building 1, and we would sell pizza and chips and Coke, and that was one of the main ones, one of the main methods of fundraising. And then after that, we got a good idea from Cubano, I think it was, oh, let's start selling chocolate, because we don't have to have a time restriction, you know, you have 3 hours to sell this. No, we can be at school anytime with our chocolate box and, you know, be able to fundraise to help ourselves for the trip. And those were, I think, the main two methods of fundraising, except for, you know, going to your mom and being.
It also challenged us because, for example, I would see Cubano or Mario in the halls, and it would be, how many chocolate bars have you sold? And it was just one. You only sold one, you know, and it was just like, you'd walk into class and be like, Professor, can I sell these chocolate bars before we start or during the break? And, you know, it was just, it became a campus-wide fundraising activity.
I wanted to know, did your families have any oppositions towards the trip? Did anybody go, oh, Nicaragua, I've heard stories and I'm not sure if you should go?
Well, especially for me, for example, I have never, Casey basically left them, like I always go with them. So for me to tell them, oh, I got a phone call from Dr. Garcia, can I go to Nicaragua? They're like, oh, Nicaragua, you know the right is there. I was like, but, you know, I want to try something new. And they were like, oh, go ahead. I mean, you're 21. You could do what you want. But at the same time, remember, somewhere you don't know. I was like, exactly. I want to know the culture.
But there had been a lot of earthquakes around Nicaragua right before we left. I was scared myself. Even when I got to Nicaragua, you know, when we got to Managua, I just stood my feet on the ground. And I'm like, all right, we're good, let's go. Because it was... Yeah, I mean, it was fear to some extent also. But once we got there, it was great.
When you arrived, was there anything that stood out to you or took you by surprise?
I think the first thing that took everyone by surprise immediately was right when we all stepped off of the plane, it was just like a wall of heat. Like we've never, like, it's like 110 inside the airport. You're like...
You know, as Hernan was putting the luggage on top of the van, I had never sweat so much in my life. Literally, you go to the gym, you work out, no, go to Managua, stand outside for 5 minutes and you'll lose weight. I'm telling you, it was the heat.
The Santa Julia community in particular, which the students shared, really has that history where we see the impact of dictatorships through the generations. The women that are in Santa Julia are the children of the women who were basically working in the coffee plantation of the dictator Somoza from the 1930s until late 70s in Nicaragua. And we see the effects of that basically sort of left on their own and trying to build the community again out of nothing. No education. These women do not know how to read, how to write, and just having electricity, the basic needs in the community is a big deal. It's a first for them. So the context, the population, very heavy political as well as economic disadvantages.
$45 minutes, guys, to the hotel.
45 minutes to the hotel. Okay. Like 2 hours. Oh my god. Oh my gosh, we're in the streets.
And as you arrived, as you were driving through the streets, those expectations that everybody, you know, gave you, the stories that you heard, all those feelings that you had about, is it safe, were they met or were you pleasantly surprised?
Pleasantly surprised. I mean, driving down the streets, of course, we were like, wow, like, you know, look at this. Oh, a library, like your name, Dr. Garcia. And then there was a part where it was like, I guess, a design district. And there was a big portrait of Chavez. I'm talking about big. And we were just like, okay, you know, kind of just, you know, because our views of Chavez weren't to where he could actually get
a statue.
a statue of his face. But when we got to the hotel, it was surprisingly amazing because it was like, Stelson described it in one of the meetings as a gated pueblito. And it really was. We all had our own little houses.
We're here.
We saw sort of a horse and a carriage taking individuals in. So, I mean, driving individuals, right? So it was the car, and then you had a horse and a carriage, like a car.
Yeah, like the old cars that we would consider old in the U.S. are like good cars over there.
Road rules are pretty much non-existent, you know, just make your way through.
Can you guys, you know, elaborate on how that experience in the hotel, the horror stories, I guess you could call them that.
We went and there was a welcoming show with dances. I believe it was 3 different acts. And the whole time we could hear little things flying around. And then Hernan and Scarlett, who were the tour guides, told us, oh, it's bats.
Wow.
So we were just like, it's bats. We're like, you know, and then we were relaxing. And then after the show, we're sitting down, we're just talking. You know, we had Wi-Fi, everyone's looking on their phone, and then dark. And you just hear like 20 more bats right next to your ears, the dogs, everyone going crazy. And that's when the lights went out the first night.
Where is the light?
Okay. He said it was somewhere around here.
I think it was.
Someone's gonna say a scary story?
The water still runs.
Oh, my text message just said, I think that my...
Ya está grabando?
Yeah, it's
So the lights just went off in the entire community. So yeah, we'll see. You're being nice, Leslie. I mean, the lights went out. Talking about
Can't see your hand.
you cannot see here. You know, you're about to go to sleep. You could see. You could get up, go to the restroom. No. You could not see your hand. Pitch black. No stars, barely any stars, bats all over your head, and you are sitting there saying, wait a minute, I'm hot, I can't get on Facebook, I can't upload a picture on Instagram. And that's, I think, where it hit us all, you know, that we are in a third world country. So then I go up and I speak to Norman, you know, the director of Panorama, and I said, Norman, call FPL. I mean, Norman, I'm here thinking to myself, I say, Norman, what's plan B? Let's get the generators. He just looked at me, and then Arlene looked at me. And at that moment, I realized I'm not in Hialeah anymore. You know what I mean? I literally need to just wait and see what happens. And I think it hit us all. And in that moment, though, we were able to connect in a way that we never thought that it would be possible. Under the stars, the few stars that were there, in the dark, just nature, Nicaragua, 8 students and 2 faculty members. And that was so powerful, and that really set the tone for what was to come.
And even though the hotel, you know, like Stelson mentioned, it's like a little pueblito gated. You know, all the surrounding communities, which we realized later as we visited them, are in extreme, you know, poverty, extreme poverty. I think for the hotel, even though it's gated, it was very rustic. I mean, we all had to take our dishes, we washed them, even inside the rooms that we had. The detergents, you know, the dishwashing detergent was not like liquid. It was like this block of something.
A bar of soap. It was
circular. It was hard. Yeah.
No bubbles.
Like, no bubbles. That, and then obviously there was no AC for that first night. And then we were, you know, sort of up in the rural areas, like the mountain areas. So you heard all kinds of birds and animals that seemed to be like right on your bed, but they were all around outside, you know, very rustic. And the hotel is called Selva Verde, which is like green forest, you know. So it was very nature oriented. And I think that was great as far as the agency's way of thinking and giving you, there's comfort, but there's still, things that you need to do. It wasn't a luxury hotel.
It was a truly humbling experience.
Absolutely. And that humbling experience. And I think that all of us have quite the experiences, right, as it relates to moments that we felt humbled. I mean, for me, definitely that time where we had everything, after the beautiful, colorful performance, it was incredible how instantly color was gone. And when we think back into our lives, right, you realize that we could have everything 1 second and how that could be gone the next.
It was really dark. Let me explain how dark it was. Everyone was sound asleep, and then Dr. Garcia and Professor Jaime were talking about, oh, don't forget to write your reflections. We're like, okay. So I took my laptop, I went into the living room, and I laid on the hammock, and I was typing up my reflection, right? And the laptop's, beaming in your face, and you're like, okay, it's not that dark. I closed the laptop. I could not see anything. I was so scared. I opened the laptop and I was like, okay, I'm over here, and to figure out where I was so I can get to my room. But that's how dark it was. It was scary.
When we got to the orphanage, we also realized that they didn't have running water, and the smell of everything. And then as we got into the other communities, we then really see how there is no electricity, the food, what people were wearing, and sort of the hard day-to-day of having maybe to walk 2 miles.
I'm sure that you all felt a lot of sympathy when you arrived. I'm sure you saw the orphans, you saw, their stories, but after you got to know them, when was that moment when it changed from sympathy to empathy?
The sympathy kicked in immediately. We coming from the United States, and when we get to Nicaragua, nothing is the same at all. You don't see very clean buildings, and you don't see very clean people or cars or anything. Everything is, like a third world country, I guess you could say. Then the empathy started kicking in with the kids right around the time when we started getting really comfortable and getting to know them. Then we started connecting, their stories. Which I was actually surprised. They had marble notebooks like we do, and just school books, and it seemed kind of regular. I mean, their desks were a little old-fashioned, but it was no big deal. But then we went into their bedrooms, and we got to see, and that was like, wow. Their mattresses really thin, basically like a comforter that we would use to cover ourselves. They were sleeping on top of them.
Something also that was very powerful was we bought, if you see the sleeping conditions where these children used to sleep, the mattresses, it was literally very, very thin. It looked like thin sheets on very, very hard wood. So what we did was we bought each of the children in the orphanage, we bought them mattresses, very thick mattresses, so they could sleep well. And as we were leaving, Stelson, which is one of the other students that went with us, he's about 6'3", very, very tall guy. He said that one of the children from the orphanage called him and said, was mimicking for him to get close to him. So when Stelson went down, he said, "Cárgame, cárgame," to carry him. Stelson carried him, gave him a kiss on the cheek, and said, "Thank you. Because of you, I slept better." Wow. And just hugged him and embraced him, and he cried. $23 is all those mattresses cost. Per mattress, it was $23. And we think here back in the US, all we're able to do with $23, it just really puts it into perspective how we lose the value of things and how with so little you could really do so much. A lot of our students here say, let me wait to get my bachelor's, let me wait to get my master's, let me wait to get my PhD. Someday I will make a difference. No, the difference starts now. The difference starts today. Don't wait for tomorrow what you can do today. Y cuéntame de los matres, ¿cómo estaban ayer los matres?
Bien, tan rico, muy rico, suave.
From the start, you get there and the kids embraced you so much openness, you know, not even be able to know English, but they still tried, you know. I remember personally that trying to talk to them, they realized that I didn't know much Spanish, so eventually they started slowing down their words and pointing, you know, using hand gestures, you know, trying to come to my level, and I found that very astonishing. At such a young age, they knew how to relate to someone who is different from them. So that just showed the openness to new things. So that was really touching for me and really a memorable moment.
I want to know, were there any stories that maybe you saw yourself in the child? Maybe, you know, you saw yourself when you were younger, or, you know, your dreams, your aspirations in one of the children?
There was this one girl named Catherine. She was about 13, and the main nun told us that she kind of had some attitude problems, and she didn't really open up to people, and she really didn't like talking about her issues. And from the first day, we all identified with certain kids, and, you know, it was just, tomorrow I want to get to know, you know, what happened. And with Catherine, I took the whole week that I was there to always speak to her for at least 30 minutes and just have her open herself and speak, because I knew I was gonna leave, and she knew that I wasn't gonna tell her secrets. And it was like a therapy for both of us, because like I said, I saw a lot of me in her, and I got to see the good in her, which also exposed me more to the good of me. And it was an amazing experience. Every child left a fingerprint in our hearts.
Orphanage, this kid named Carlos, he's one of the orphans. He stayed there he's been there his whole life, 12 years.
His whole life.
His whole life. And he would like sit next to me and kind of trying to engage with me, but it didn't click in my mind. I'm like, I would engage. I'd be like, hey, how you doing? And you know, just be there. And then I really noticed that he started really making an effort with me, and then it's like he was really trying to connect with me. So I started to connect with him, and then I realized, wow, it's like we kind of share the same story, because in my personal experience, like my father left, and like it was really tough. So I was raised by my mother, so it's like I had those, I guess, abandonment issues. So it's like, okay, he's there. It's like, you know, it's like you see these group, and then, you know, it's like you're not the first group to be there. So just like group comes there, leaves, comes there, leaves. It's like, wow, what is he going through? Like, and then you kind of compare the two stories. It's like that was one of the orphans that really got to me, and that really opened my eyes, and it's like, okay, now I can start feeling.
So you connected on a deeper level then. It was being there, it really showed you how, you know, body language and emotions and feelings can help you to communicate with others.
Yeah, feelings are universal, right? A lot of how we communicate is not necessarily into what is said, but what is not said. You know, seeing the students interacting, you know, with Henry, with Mario, you know, with Hayden or with Cubano, that the language was not there, but that didn't matter. Emotions spoke for themselves, and a lot of times students connected more to them than what they did to us, that we spoke perfect Spanish. And it was like a connection of the souls, and there's truly no way of explaining it. You know, here back in the US, you know, we say, oh, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. No, you're not grateful. Honestly, over there, once you're there and you truly see it from the outside in, you realize that it's more than having X amount of money. It's more than having soap. It's more than having running water. It's more than having food. It's making the best of what you have and of what you don't have. That was powerful.
Hearing all these people's stories about how they used to be used for sex and all the struggles they went through just to make it here where they're at.
One of the things that we focused in the most is the power of story and the difference between empathy and sympathy. When we first arrived, we felt sorry for these individuals. We felt pity for them. However, after being there and listening to their stories, that sympathy quickly turned into empathy. We were able to relate to the power of story, that although we may not have the same, feelings are universal. And how we were able to connect and the lifelong learning opportunities that we were able to share with our students will go beyond the week that we were in Nicaragua. To this day, and I think for the rest of our lives, we would always have those connections and those bonds that we built through just the sharing of our souls. And that, I think, was one of the most powerful things of this trip.
They also were able to take us to this other community called Santa Julia and talk about the power of story there as well. There was another layer to as far as the stories and those connections. I think just to maybe add with the orphanage in particular, all of that connection was evident at the end in the farewell. It was a surprise too to see how emotional it got.
For me, that farewell moment was very intense because I really did bonded with this one particular kid. His name was Kenneth, and he had glasses. You know, he looked like one of those typical shy guys. You know, he's very smart, extremely smart student. When we're teaching him English, you know, he knew the most English. He knew the days of the week. He knew all his numbers. So he was textbook kind of guy, but he was really shy. And when I got there, we immediately bonded. I just a look in his eye, you know. And the second day we went, I wore this football jersey. It was a Messi, Argentina jersey, and all the kids blew up, you know. And they would start calling me Messi, and he would call me Messi. Hey, Messi, Messi, because they didn't really know my name yet. And we played a lot, and we ran around, and it was, you know, I have two older brothers, but I never had a younger brother, and I saw him as a younger brother, and I really wanted the best for him. You know, what's going to happen? You know, so I really felt as if I was abandoning him, which I didn't want to. Or a matter of fact, and all of the kids, because they each individually had their own touching moment as we spent more and more time with each of them. They all had their unique gift to us. And I must say, just leaving them was a really bittersweet moment because you know what you did for them, but having to leave was really heart-wrenching.
It has been a month since we came, and to this day, we're still sharing anecdotes, stories. There's times where I wake up and I think of Santa Julia, I think of Alexis, I think of Carlos, I think of all the students that were there, that to some in paper and to some of you who are seeing these and seeing this video and this TV show may think that they are a number. But to us, they're individuals, they're stories, they're people, their struggle, their happiness, their laughter. And to us, that is forever a part of who we are. So this trip goes beyond a TV show. This trip goes beyond what you learn in a textbook. This trip goes beyond what, as a professor, I lecture in a class. As a professor, as a director of the orchestra, we were not able to get this done had not the 8 students and the children that were there and the women and the nuns played the beautiful music that they played. That became our orchestra, an orchestra that will forever play in our minds and in our hearts.
You guys share your experiences with the farewell. How was it for you? Because as you said, you connected with a child. How was it to say, you know, goodbye, and what advice did you leave?
Sometimes life is difficult, and you can't always determine whether you're going to be rich or not. You know, because when we're young, it's, I want to be rich, I want to be rich. And as you start to mature, you realize, well, I want to be happy. I want to be secure. And with the students being orphans and not having anything, that was kind of, it wasn't in the picture, but they knew that being rich wasn't an automatic answer. So I spoke to them about being educated and how important it is to be educated, because life is easier when you're educated. When you know your self-worth, when you know what's right and what's wrong, and people treat you better, especially being in Nicaragua, where it's not like here in the United States where we can go to Red Lobster and the table next to us might be some millionaires, and then we might be an average family. And then next to us might be a family that they don't even know how they got there. In Nicaragua, it's classes, you know, and we went to a mall and it was, if we weren't from the United States, we probably would have not been allowed inside of there. And it was just showing them always have your own worth. Whether you're here in Nicaragua or wherever you are, be educated and respect yourself.
You know, as men, you know, we're taught from very young, hold your emotions, hold your emotions. And I will never forget seeing Stelson sitting in a chair with his head down, and all I saw were tears from his eyes. I look back and I see Mario trying to hold it in. I turn back and I see Cubano. At that moment, it just reiterated that when you connect, you're vulnerable. And the only way to truly embrace an experience is through vulnerability and putting those guards down and connecting. That farewell was probably one of the most emotional moments that I have ever experienced, not only as a professional, but also as a person. And to have experienced that together with all of you, it's truly, I mean, there's just no words.
What are you gonna play?
We're gonna play football. Ahora listo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 equipos de 3.
Niños, ¿qué ven ahí? Entonces, vamos a hacerlo todos juntos. ¿Se recuerdan que lo vimos? Entonces,
I'd like for you guys to take this time to maybe share the changes that you all made after the trip in yourselves. What did you see in yourselves? And also advice that you would give to other students who want to take the time out of their lives to make these kinds of differences as well.
For me, I would have to say, I think I finally got the 2 words I want to sum up my experience and what I learned from this immersion is happiness and value. And it comes back to when we went to Santa Julia on our last night there. We decided to make s'mores and have a bonfire for the kids. And it was such an amazing experience. Everyone is happy, despite their trials and tribulations, despite what they've been through, despite their hardship. They were just engaging in the moment. We had so much fun. And in that moment, I took myself back and I was aside with a couple others. And the kids, they came around us and held hands and started dancing and singing and running around us. And literally, for that moment, everything stopped. I mean, I left my body. It was a blur, and I can't even explain it through words because it was so surreal. It was literally surreal. And at that moment, I realized everyone is happy. They don't have money. They don't have flashy clothes. They don't have cars. And they're absolutely ecstatic. They're having so much fun. So that made me realize that you don't need these things. You don't need material things to be happy. What you need is the people around you. And from that moment, I started to realize that, you know, I'm fortunate to have these options, and I shouldn't just, you know, take it for granted, and I should value the little things that you do have, like a plate of food to eat and running water. So that's why I would say I would take back happiness and value, because you don't realize it until it's gone.
It's life-changing. You know, you don't take life for granted. Any little thing, oh, we get mad. Oh, we don't have money, we can't buy this. But they don't have money, and with whatever they have, they're happy. For them to be so welcoming, so opening, and they're like, my amiguita, I mean, my friend. And I'm like, they're calling me my friend already, and I just know them for 3 days, you know. Just knowing that happiness is not money, you know, it's what you make of it. Before this trip, I was like, I don't think of coming back to Nicaragua. But no, I want to go back now, and I want to do more for them.
One thing that I learned about them was strength. I realized that sometimes I might easily defeat myself, and sometimes, you know, be my own worst enemy. And I think as a person, I learned how powerful I can be. You know, my mother had told me stories and my aunt, but they were never as honest about it. You know, they said it so I could know, but it wasn't the power of storytelling. So the second day that we went back, it was different. We were excited, we were ready, we had a vision and a mission, and it was gonna happen that night because it was our last night. And we started hearing stories about the women and the difficulties that they faced in their life. And that moment was top 2, you know, and if not 1. And it's because at that moment I sat back and I started thinking about, you know, the life that I've lived for the past 25 years, and how have I dealt with things and having so much? Because they, you know, I think about them at my age and I'm like, well, did they even have light? You know, they don't have water now. Did they have light before? And I think I told them, thank you for sharing your story, because when I face difficulties in my life, I'm gonna think about your story and I'm gonna push through. Then you take a break and you reflect, because it's so important to reflect on life. It's so important to reflect every day and say, today I was mad, today I was happy, but tomorrow I'm gonna start the day and I'm gonna take everything, and you know, and that's what I gained from the experience. It was to go through obstacles, to learn from these women and take those traits. I know that this is a transformation stage in my life, and I'm forever grateful for that experience. It like Professor Hyman describes it, it was a breakthrough.
Every night we did debriefing groups with them, and I think, and you guys can add to that, that facilitated and helped that reflection, contemplation of what we experienced that day, to then connect it to us, right, personally.
I'm not gonna lie, I hated those meetings. Like we had to sit in some kind of circle, and we had to reflect on what just happened. It's like, okay, I just had an emotional day. Let me go to sleep. No, we had to talk about it, and it's like, it was hard for me because most of the trip I had problems embracing. It was so much built up anger. It's like, I don't get it. How do I embrace? I don't know how to embrace.
I think it was the 4th.
It was probably the 4th night. Like, I remember Leslie's like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you, because that's when I really started to connect with Carlos, one of the orphans. And I had a conversation with my mom. I was like, they're telling me embrace, they're telling me to, you know, do this, do that. And it's like, I don't know how. Like, to my core, I do not know how. And then it's like, I'm afraid. She's like, what are you afraid of? And I was like, that's when it hit me. I'm afraid to feel that pain. It's like, I'm afraid to connect because, like, I remember abandonment issues. I had problems connecting, and it's like, I didn't know how. And I guess, I don't know, maybe, me personally, I felt the other group members didn't really understand. So in my mind, I was like, it was just me versus them.
Breakthroughs. I know that Leslie mentioned this as well, that every single one of us have breakthroughs at different times of the trip. And after hearing you speak, Henry, it just reiterates how important the trip really was and how lifelong learning takes place, because your breakthrough, Leslie, was a lot earlier than Henry's. Henry's, even as you speak now, I am literally seeing your breakthrough. Yeah. I don't know if you're cognizant of that or not, but, it's incredible. Where you're at now was not where you were with when we did the post journal.
I was thinking about the kids in the orphan, what they eating now, what they doing. It's like, they bring me, because knowing that, when you're 3, 5, you don't remember your life, childhood experience, they brought that back to me, knowing that I didn't have a mom. The mom I thought that was my mom wasn't my mom. So they brought the kid in me when I was there. They taught me how to play so much things, like soccer. I was horrible in soccer. It was amazing how I knew how to dribble the ball, how to kick, and they embraced our sport life. We played dodgeball, volleyball with them. It was amazing. And the experience I got from them leaving, I feel like I was in a funeral. I just lost somebody important in my life, knowing that I was about to leave and going back to America. And like, if I had the experience to go back, I would do it again, no doubt.
in the goodbye moment with the orphans, I didn't know how I was gonna approach it. Like, I was thinking, okay, should I be like a rock? Should I, like, you know, be centered? Like, that's what I'm thinking, you know, because I'm like, I know Leslie's gonna cry. I know Lillian's gonna cry. I'm like, I can't cry, you know. So I was thinking, I didn't know how to approach it. So I was like, okay, let me go and just feel it out. And like, I had a moment with Carlos. I was thinking like I should leave him something. So I'm going through my pockets and I'm like, I have nothing. What do I like? I want to leave him for him to something for him to remember me by. So I was like, wow. Let me just I had a hat on. So I was like, I asked Hernan, one of the Panorama service personnel. I was like, can I borrow your permanent marker? And I signed my name on the hat and I gave it to him. And I told, I forgot who was sitting next to me. I think it was Lillian? Was it you, Lillian?
I don't think so.
Or maybe Leslie. I asked to translate. No, it was probably Stelson. I told Stelson to translate to Carlos, this is for you. And like, I plan on coming back. So when I come back, I really hope that you still have it. And when I gave it to him, he just started crying. And I didn't know how to handle it. Like, I was gonna cry, and then I was like, okay, let me look at Dr. Garcia and Jaime. Are they crying? So, and then I was looking at them. They're not crying. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be professional. I can't cry. So I was like, you know, like I didn't cry. And then Scarlett was, you know, giving out the certificates of participation for, you know, for the trip, and she was just telling us how much she appreciated what we did, and she was crying, and I was like, okay, I can't handle it. And I started crying. So I started crying because Scarlett was crying, and I started crying.
You cried.
I cried.
Don't blame Scarlett. You cried.
I cried.
You cried. It's okay to cry.
Like, that moment is like, I felt it. That entire week, I felt right there. And like, after just letting it all out and just, you know, being with Carlos and then just being with everyone and just embracing and just everyone having their goodbye moments in that one huge moment, like, it really brought us all together, and it was the closure that we all needed.
When you speak about lifelong learning and the way that this trip was created, it truly speaks for itself. A month post, and here we are having a conversation, and you're still having those epiphanies. And that is what education should be. Education should not only be confined to 16 weeks. Education should not be confined to a chapter. Education is lifelong, honestly. So, wow, do I love my job. Wow, do I love my job. You know, no, I mean, and I mean that. I mean, I love being an educator because, and an educator, it could be in any way, anything that you deal with people, any type of connection, because you all are the product of where this world is going. And you allowing yourself, you know, Henry and all of you, to just put your guard down and say, I am going to still embrace. I am going to still learn.
It was definitely a life-changing experience that taught me many things that I could apply to my life.
And I'd like to thank them for the opportunity they gave me to go to Nicaragua for an amazing experience that I would live with forever.
I enjoyed the trip, and I thank you for the opportunity.
It was a great experience. I learned a lot, and right now I'm just trying to process it and try to, you know, apply it to my life and see how, you know, how it can change my life and change the lives of others.
I want to thank you all for sharing your stories, and I want you to know that your stories touched me. Although I wasn't there, I honestly, truly felt that I was there with you and that I learned from your experiences. Thank you again so much for sharing your stories, and thank you for the service that you provided to those orphans.
Thank you.
Thank you.